So we're here to talk through this Kuromasu puzzle by Cappleman-Lynes called Twins. You'll see all of these number clues are paired right next to themselves, and actually it's just some interesting deductions. As we've been doing with other recent videos, we're going to start though in more of a speed solving mode. And so here is my blind paper solve, as well as the times. And I don't note them as often when I get started, but these were the times in our testing sheet before I went. So at the moment of testing, Persona was in the lead with a 141 time, and we'll see if I am able to compete with that as I get through the solve. So look at some of the places I'm starting. I'm at least noting some things about the three clues, but maybe not the fastest observation about the three clues. So these diagonal cells, if they were shaded, would put too much around them. We'll come back and show you why that is. But there's something more key about these threes, which will really power the solve. And it's thinking about the fact that when you have these twin clues, this is actually the theme through the whole solve. You're now seeing a bit of it as I'm marking in these notes. There has to be an upward and downward displacement so that you take different horizontal or vertical cells. If all three were in the same row, then they would have to shade the cells right above them, right below them, and you'd have two black cells shading in all those spots. And so that displacement up and down leads to this kind of staircase pattern. That's true in both the shaded cells as well as in the white cells around these. Coming back to that three in the bottom and seeing that one of those patterns would isolate the bottom of the grid, so it's got to be down up as opposed to up down in the last two rows. That's giving me how these sixes work. So once I know there are two coming to the left from the bottom six, I have to have two in total from the top six, but one of them is going to have to go to the right. Looks like I'm now seeing the three indeed has to use just two cells, so I'm marking that logic up top. So still good progress. We're at a minute 10, so I got a half minute to finish this grid to catch up to Persona's time, and we'll see if that's possible. Looks like good progress so far. I use these lines to check for connectivity, and so at least marking that upper left corner, I was checking that the whole left side of the grid has to take those cells to come through. Marking over to here. Here it looks like I'm pausing to think, and maybe pausing to think a little too much. There's an extension of the thinking that we'll come back to, which is if the horizontal / vertical ways those fours work have to be different. The four in that on the right side can't go up, because then it would have the same white displacement to the top, which means it would have the same white displacement to the bottom, and you'd have two black cells shaded. And so that is something I don't see in my speed solve. We'll come back to in the logical solve, but that's where I'm losing time, not just to Persona, but to the silver finisher as well. But will I still be able to finish this puzzle clean enough to make the podium? It looks like turning it in, I just managed to do so. So 2 minutes 5 seconds is just below the time before the space. So fairly good solve. Let's sort of show you some of the meat of what was going into it. So again, with this as a starting puzzle, the first thing I was doing in my solve was something that is often used in Kuromasu. And this is the same kind of clue. If you have a single 2 on its own, this is one of the first heuristics people learn, is that if you think about what would happen if you shade this cell diagonal to it, you're adding 2 more to the count. Here's a case where this 3 already has 2 in its count, so this would take it to 4. And so you can't shade this cell, you can't shade this cell, you can't shade any cell near these 3s. First thing I note in the grid. These, though, aren't kind of the most powerful observation. The way this twins puzzle really works is to see how this pattern at its start is deadly. So imagine all of these are left to right. You would then have both sides being completely shaded. So instead, what we're going to need to do is have this be too wide and have a displacement like this going through. And so the way this puzzle starts quickly, and I ran into it during my solve, is to recognize each of these 3 twins can only have 2 coming left, right, and they're going to have a distinct one going up and down. That leads you to this corner where you get the start of the pattern. As this comes out here, you have this option or this option, but this is the only option that works, so this is tracing the star of that solve. This 4 right now is actually complete, just based off the clues we have around it, and so that gives us these as well. And marking this in, I think this is like the stage of the solve. You don't actually have to mark these in green, but it's good to see the connectivity, so this is how I had it on paper. This 4 doesn't want to take this cell, because then it would be 4 in a row, and you get, again, this deadly pattern, like all of these cells coming through. So knowing that's not the case, this gets shaded. And this is where I made a slowdown, but I'm going to show it to you now. Knowing that these have to have distinct vertical displacements, I can't take this cell too, because then if I take this, these are both like so. If I don't take this, these are both like so, and would have 2 black cells together. So once this only has 1 coming up, and knowing that this has to be different in the upwards direction, this can be shaded quickly, and that gives this, that gives this. And so if I were on the top of my game, I would have gotten to this stage a little bit faster, but seeing that as the logical path for the solve. The top solvers intuit not just these themes immediately, but they will get to how these theme elements work again and again and again and again. So you could get a little bit of the micro-learning from one pair of these threes, but it applies all the way through the puzzle, including how at the end these cells work together around this 4. So really brilliant theme from Sam, so thanks for this puzzle. Hope you enjoyed watching this video, and maybe tomorrow I'll be more lucky to actually do well in a Kuromasu and get the top Grandmaster time. So we'll see how that goes. Thanks.